Hello, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History, where today we're still solving the mystery of August 16th, 1977. Now, if you were here for our last episode, we got into a discussion about Ginger Alden, and we weren't able to get all the way through the article that we were reading. So we've got a little bit of work left to do on it. But before we get there, we're going to see another gift that Ginger Alden received from Elvis. I think you guys are going to find this extremely interesting. Hi, Terry. Thank you so much for coming. Hi, Anna. Thank you for coming. And Anna, I actually had a special thing for you yesterday. I didn't get to it, though, so I saved it for today. So I'm actually going to start with it. Hi, Marion. Glad to see you. Appreciate you being here. Let me see if I can pull this up, because I promised it on the thumbnail and I never got a chance to get to it. And here it is. This is a Coke cup. As you can see, a paper cup that's red with the Coke emblem on it. And there's a picture of Elvis in concert. And at this concert, well, let me pull up my notes so I make sure I get this right. At this concert in 1977, so this was the year that we're looking at, the year that he passed away, Elvis signed this cup to a fan, and the signature says, "To Anna, thank you, Elvis Presley." So Anna, this one was for you. We don't know which fan this was. Was it you? Accompanied by a photograph from the performance, this cup is 4.5 inches by 3 inches, and it sold at auction on June 24th, 2010 for $1,250. Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And what I think is great about this cup is that it's ephemeral by design. You know, it's meant not to last. It's meant to be thrown away, disposable. But it's been transformed into a vessel of myth by his signature and this moment in a fan named Anna. So I thought this was just a great piece to look at from a point in 1977. And you know, and he only made it through August of that year. So it was sometime before that on one of those final tours. And some lucky fan, they got this cup. And so many of you have probably heard of the cup guy. This is not his cup. This is a different cup. But let's not get confused with that cup. But there are cups that are connected to Elvis Presley, and this is one of them. Okay, so let's flip back, and I'm gonna go back to talking about Ginger Alden for a little bit because she came up yesterday. And Anna's saying that she was not the fan who received this signed cup, but now she wants it. I bet you do. I'd love to have it too, but it would be really special if a fan named Anna owned it. And Marion's saying that she can imagine that, Anna. It would be great. And it's just, you gotta wonder what happened during that moment. The fan saw him, had nothing for him to sign, had maybe tossed out the Coke that was left in this cup, and they would have spent a pretty penny in order to get the Coke in this cup, because when you went to these concerts, it wasn't cheap to get these refreshments. Or maybe they picked it right up off the ground and they had him sign it. There's no way to know. Well, let's talk about Ginger Alden for a minute. She came up yesterday in the discussion, and there's always a question about, what was she doing at the moment that Elvis passed away? Did she find him and then she got made up? And, we have not seen these rumors yet come in. We're still on August 18th, 1977. So we haven't, on our own timeline, actually even gotten Elvis to the graveyard yet. Nobody's talked about Ginger other than Vernon mentioning that she was there and Dr. Nick confirming that she was there. Nobody knows what role she played yet. Nobody's looking at her as a villain at this point. No one's connecting her to anything that happened to Elvis. That's going to come later. But of course, we've got fans that are coming in to watch the show. And they've already read these things. I understand that. It's 2025. There's no way that most anybody who's going to be interested in a deep dive like this, they're going to know a lot of these rumors. And they're going to believe that some of them are fact. And there's a lot of books out there that really do make it look like Ginger did some terrible things. And we're going to go through each and every one of those at some point. But the main gist of the rumor is that she woke up, found Elvis passed away, took the time to take a shower and do her makeup and put appropriate clothes on for the public so that she could have her pictures taken, because she knew this would be a picture event. Possibly that she called a newspaper or her mother, and her mother told her to call the newspaper, like the National Enquirer. She made some kind of deal with them. There are portions of truth in all of this. I think there is a link between her and the Enquirer at some point, but there are 2 or 3 books that try to link it directly to this day and the time between when she found Elvis and when she notified anybody. So let's just stop for just a second. I see some messages coming in. And Mary is saying she found the way Elvis said Coca-Cola in one of his movies funny. And Anna's saying, can I read the exact words again? I'm assuming the exact words from the Coke cup. Yeah, let me pull that back up. It is... The Coke cup is signed, to Anna, thank you, Elvis Presley. So it says thank you, and you got to wonder, what is he thanking her about? Just for coming to the concert? Maybe she gave him something. Maybe she said something really nice. Maybe she'd done something before and he knew her. But it says, to Anna, thank you, Elvis Presley. And this was at some point in 1977. And Terry's saying, great story about the Coke cup. Thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. Hi, Carolyn. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. Okay, so let's go back to Ginger. So sorry to everybody that I'm bouncing around a little, but I think it makes it fun to get the audience interaction and, have a kind of a flow of real conversation instead of just me blabbing away into this microphone. But we're talking about Ginger Alden and the myth that she wasted some amount of time between when she found Elvis, when she notified anybody, that she used that time to some kind of advantage of hers, whether it was to make herself look better or to make some kind of financial deal, to alert her mother, that her mother got involved with trying to make money off of it. It's all out there. So, and we had somebody come in yesterday, Keith, I think was his name. And Keith, if you get a chance to listen to this one, I've looked this up just for you. I've got a quote that goes right back to the source, the day of the event. and I think speaks to this, the entire myth about what Ginger did or did not do. And hello, Angie. Thank you for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. So this quote that I have is from a man named Ulysses Jones. Let me try this again. Ulysses Jones Jr. And he was a paramedic. And he was one of the 2 paramedics that came into Graceland. And they put Elvis on a stretcher and brought him out, put him into the ambulance. He was there. He did a bunch of like TV interviews, and he did I think he interviewed for Goldman, for Goldman's book, and he talked to some other people. But there's a fair consensus that he said the following. Now, I don't have the exact source with me, but I do have the quote. And again, this is outside the timeline that we're working on. So I'm pulling this quote in now with no actual sources to show you, so that we at least have something that combats the myth. And then as we grow towards the point where Ginger enters the story, and where Ulysses enters the story, because he's been there, but we haven't really talked to him yet, haven't really seen anything with him. We'll kind of know how he already feels and what he's seen. But this is from Ulysses. It says, he says, he noticed that, well, this is from somebody who talked to him. He said that he noticed Ginger several times while they were there, and that there was no doubt in his mind that she was not dressed up, and she was not made up, that she was very distraught, that she had obviously been crying a lot, and was still dressed, he thought, either in a very pale yellow or maybe a light blue robe. This person asked Ulysses about this 3 or 4 different times, and he wanted to know very specifically whether she was not dressed, whether she was, still looked like she was in her night clothes and her robe. And Ulysses stated every time emphatically, there was no doubt in his mind that she was not dressed, that she had not showered, that she had not put on her makeup, that she was not presentable to a television world. So that's not a direct quote from Ulysses, but that's kind of what he says. And we're going to see that in the future. But I just wanted to kind of enter it into the record so that we'll be able to refer back to it as we see this come up. Hey, Keith, how you doing? See, you just got here. But I'm going to reread this for you because I actually got this for you. Anna's saying, when did she have known that he was already dead? So we haven't really got to it yet, but she's going to wake up. And this is sometime around 2:30 p.m. And she goes and finds Elvis in the bathroom when she can't find him anywhere else. She doesn't find him immediately upon awakening because she has no fear that there's anything wrong. He's just not in bed, but she eventually tracks him down to the bathroom, sees that he's in there, immediately calls for help. That's my belief, but we'll get into it and we'll figure it out exactly. Hi, Emma. Thank you so much for coming. Definitely appreciate seeing you here. Hey, Deb. Thank you for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And again, hi, Keith. Thanks for seeing you here. I'm just trying to catch up with the chat. Thank you guys for being so social with each other and forming a real community here. I love to see that you all enjoy seeing each other here. Now let me just pull this up again. So, Keith, you had asked yesterday, what was Ginger? How do we know that Ginger didn't shower and make up and do all kinds of things in some period before she notified anybody that she had found that Elvis was passed away? And Ulysses Jones, he does several interviews and stuff, but he talks with somebody that's not named here, but that person is saying that Ulysses told them he noticed Ginger several times while they were there, and there was no doubt in Ulysses' mind that she was not dressed or made up. She was very distraught and obviously been crying a lot. And she was still dressed in, he thought, either a very pale yellow or light blue robe. and that he was asked that question several times and he answered the same several times. So this is a very, very poor source for me to bring out. But I'm doing that purposely because we're not there in the timeline. So we've got one Chinese whisper that says Ginger was doing bad stuff. I'm putting another Chinese whisper out there that says she was not doing anything bad. And then we're just going to let them kind of sit there as we catch up to that point in the timeline as we move forward. Hey, Emma, I'm also sorry to hear about your friend. It's definitely a hard time to go through. And Emma's saying that she's still struggling with that and that her friend was only 34. That is very heartbreaking. And Sam is saying that people hate on Ginger as much as they do Priscilla, so I say it's just because people hate her so much they will say anything. There's some truth to that, Sam, but it's also true that a lot of bad things have been published about her. And then people rely on things that have been published. They feel like, you know, if it's in a book, then it's true. And one of the things I'm bringing forward is it doesn't matter how many times something's been published in any number of books, it doesn't make it true. What makes it true is being true. And so we're trying to get down to source records, which don't necessarily reflect truth because they too can be tampered with, or they could have been fictionalized to start with. But we have to put our belief somewhere. And you put your belief in facts in source documents. That's the best place to go to. Can't be 100% belief, but you got a lot in there. And then the rest of the belief, you know, for emotional truth, you look to people. Documents can't tell you emotional truth. People tell you emotional truth, but they'll mess up the facts about the events. So they'll tell you the emotional truth of some event, but they'll mess up every single fact about it. And then you have to be able to blend those together to figure out what really happened. And so let's take a look at some other pieces that I have to show you today that continue this story forward. And we're going to keep talking about Ginger for a little bit because we're going to look at another gift that she got. Now, we've already seen the one that's on screen, but I'm bringing it up here again so that we can talk about and Deb is saying this is new to her about Ginger. Well, good, because we're going to learn a whole bunch of stuff about Ginger. Well, we're going to learn about things that were given to Ginger and how Elvis may have felt about Ginger. I think it's probably a better way to put it. But what we should understand about Elvis is that he did not give gifts casually. It seems like he did because there were so many gifts and so many people got them. But this was not a casual thing for him. He had purpose with these gifts. Each gift was a thread in the tapestry of his love, a symbol, a story, a vow, especially those that he gave to his girlfriends. Now, all the people that he gave to, though, he loved them all. And so every one of these is a thread in his tapestry. It comes directly back to him. And it links people to him. I gave you this. This is for you to remember this moment with me. And together, we are forever linked. And Keith is asking, why did Vester ban her from Graceland after EP passed? Something happened and he knew about Ginger. I don't believe he ever did ban Ginger. I've never seen any actual proof of that. That's, again, one of those things that is said in a book. But I think we'd have to find something more substantial than just what was said in a book about whether she was banned. And it would really need to be by somebody that worked there within the office. Other people didn't work directly for Vernon. So, you know, again, I'd be happy to look at whatever that you're talking about. Because I've seen that in some different places. And again, we're going to eventually get there. But if you want to bring it up earlier, if you know exactly where it's at, I'm happy to go take a look at it. We'll talk about it. And a lot of people are saying that they quite like Ginger. I think there's a very different Ginger you see in her book than what you see reflected in other books about Ginger. And Carolyn's saying that she likes Ginger and thinks she was just very young. I've heard the rumors and would like to know the truth about what happened when she found him. So, again, we're going to get there. Won't be in this episode. So what I'm trying to do here is to show some of the items that Elvis gave to Ginger, and he gave her a lot. We're only going to look at 4 right now. 3 that we've already seen and 1 new one. And we're going to see that they tell a story and that they show a pattern and that they show that something was being built. So when we look at this scarf, you know, he gave Ginger this scarf. And this is a scarf that's so much like every other scarf that he gave out, gave them to a lot of people. But it's a symbol of his love that he gave to many fans. His love as an icon. It's a public gesture. He shared it with thousands, not just him giving this to Ginger, but he gave scarves like this to thousands. The scarf is Elvis as spectacle, as the beloved performer. It's the love of the crowd, and it's distilled into a single piece of fabric. And he's given it to Ginger as a reminder that she too is a part of his mythic embrace. He has brought her into that huge crowd of women that love him. That one that he shares the love back and forth with from the stage and from his records and from his movies. The ones who have fallen in love with him the first time that they found him, and they can remember when that was. And at this moment in time, they're all out there buying up that memory because he's gone, and they're trying to remember him forever. And that's what he's brought her into with the scarf. And that's just one, you know, but he's given that to a lot of people. It's not entirely special, but it is special. And we've also seen Elvis give Ginger, look at this next piece. We've seen him give Ginger this incredible shirt that he personally wore, and he wore it enough to put sweat stains into it. And it's covered with Native American motifs that speak to unity, heritage, and longing. The shirt represents Elvis as a dreamer, as a seeker, and as a man. It's a gift that says, this is who I am outside the myth. You know, this shirt represents who I am when I'm not on stage, when I'm just trying to be me. And that is the person that Elvis wants Ginger to know. And that's why he's given her this gift. And Carolyn says, I think the Memphis Mafia only loved Linda and wanted her back, so they took it out on Ginger. Plus, she was too young for them to relate to. And Terry's saying sky blue scarf, fantastic. Yeah, I would agree with that, Carolyn, that she was too... She also did not relate to them. They didn't relate to her, she didn't relate to them. None of them tried to talk to each other. I don't really think it was her duty to do that in those... Although she was there for a while, you know, definitely in the first few months, I don't know that it was really her duty to jump out and be the one that, you know, put herself forward. But after that first few months, you know, now there was a pattern set, and then that's awful hard to break out of. Let's look at this next piece. Okay, we've also seen Elvis give Ginger this anklet. This is a very small, simple piece of jewelry. And it bears his initials without any jewels, without any real adornment. It's a small token, and it's meant to be worn close to the skin, and often, perhaps always. It's a symbol of their togetherness, a symbol of his desire to be with Ginger at all times. It's a private token of presence. It whispers, I want to be with you always, even when I'm not seen. So this is a piece that he gave to Ginger to bring them closer together so that they could always be together in a very personal way. Keith is saying Vernon said she wasn't much of a talker. That's funny, Keith, because a lot of people say Vernon wasn't much of a talker, right? So, and I think the same people that said that about Vernon, you know, they felt the same way about Vernon that Vernon might have felt about Ginger. And Terry's saying that this design on the shirt would have been great for a jumpsuit for Elvis. Yeah, and it did actually reflect some of the stuff he did have on jumpsuits. So he definitely used some of those motifs. And Deb's saying like Captain Marvel, which reminds me, everybody make sure you head over to Terry's channel, Elvis History. He's got a new one about Captain Marvel. I haven't got a chance to watch it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I did one about Captain Marvel a couple of weeks ago. He's done something that's totally different. So if you really like Elvis in the comic books, make sure you watch them both. And Marion's saying that Ginger said she never wore much jewelry. And I guess that changed with Elvis. Yeah, because he loved for his ladies to wear jewelry. So we've seen these three gifts, and the scarf was shared with the world. The shirt was shared with his soul. The anklet was shared with her skin. But this next gift, this is the one that he shared with her spirit. And it's a transfer of his love and a declaration of the depth of his feelings and a testament to how he sees Ginger in his life. Now on screen behind the anklet, we can see Elvis and Tom Jones. And Elvis is wearing a very special jacket. Okay, so let's take a look at my next picture. And it's this jacket. This is a leather jacket, a motorcycle jacket. But it's been painted, been hand painted. Nearly one of a kind. Some people would say one of a kind. It's not one of a kind, but it's very close to being one of a kind. This astounding jacket was worn and owned by Elvis from 1974 through 1977 when he gifted it to Ginger Alden at Graceland. It's covered with colorful hand-painted images, and it's dominated on the back by a black hawk with its wings spread against rainbows against a silver background. So let's take a look at that. Here we see the jacket from a slightly different viewpoint. And you can see all the rainbow colors in the flames. And the shoulders have special pads on them with some unique designs. And Keith is saying that he was looking through pics of Elvis and Ginger and came up on a pic of them both, I think at one of her family's funerals. It was her grandpa's funeral, and he looked great and very happy. That's the one that's on the front of her book, right? The one on the front of her book is from that funeral, but I don't know if that's the one you're referring to. And Emma's just announcing to us that she probably won't be doing any more videos this week. We'll look forward to them next week, Emma. Just take care of yourself. And that she loves this jacket. Well, I'm going to tell you something special about the jacket in a little bit, Emma, that you might like even more. Let's take a look at the back. This is that hawk motif they were talking about. And you can see the rainbows. And he's got those shoulder pads that have stretched all the way to the back now. And you can see that the design for the rainbow flames, it wraps from the sleeves all the way onto the front of the jacket. And Terry's announcing that his channel is getting close to 100 subscribers. So when you watch Terry's video today, if you could, go ahead and subscribe. Let's get him to 100. And Emma saying that this boy had style. So I think you're going to be interested to learn what I have to say about that too, Emma. Because this actually is not Elvis's style. You're going to be very surprised. And Deb's saying that she's seen Terry's video and that everyone should watch. So let's take another look at this jacket. All right, this is inside the jacket. And it says East West Musical Instruments, gives a phone number. And it's got an area code, so definitely from the 70s. San Francisco, leather garments. And the jacket is often described as having no size indicated, but you can clearly see that the size is handwritten on the side of the label here. It says extra large, 6618. Now, I don't know whether that's original to the jacket or that was added by somebody when they auctioned it, which would have been extremely foolish. So I don't think they would have done that. So my assumption is it was originally with the jacket. And this leather strip is sewn just under the zipper on the left side interior. But just to finish the description of the jacket itself, the pattern wraps around to the front of the jacket with a stylized tree leaf motif which resembles the hawk's claws as they stretch from the back. The shoulder areas are embellished with multicolored leather pinwheels. And it has a black collar and a yoke with a zipper closure at the front. And then this leather strip is sewn just under the zipper on the left side, interior side. And East West Musical Instruments of San Francisco was a company which handcrafted leather clothing for rock stars and hippies in the 60s and 70s. Elvis loved riding motorcycles from the moment he could afford the hobby, and he enjoyed the trappings and the clothing, you know, like the hats and the gloves and the jackets, all of it, anything that you needed to get to go with the motorcycle, the saddlebags, all of it, considering both to be as much a part of the experience as the bikes themselves. The jacket is accompanied by a letter of authenticity from Ginger Alden. Let's take a look at that letter of authenticity. Well, here's a picture of Elvis before we get there. Wearing the jacket, looking pretty happy. Now, we don't often find that we find pictures of Elvis in the exact same clothing other than a few of his, stage outfits. But there are multiple pictures of him in this jacket, so he must have really loved it. That's one thing to remember. He has some amazing jewelry on in this picture. Whatever's hanging around his neck. I mean, that I can't make it out because it's blurry, but it is fabulous. He's got a second shorter necklace around his neck. I'm wondering if that's from, well, I don't know. It doesn't quite look like a gold necklace. The smaller one, though. More like a shell necklace. But he looks pretty happy in this picture. And here we've got the letter of authenticity, the provenance that goes with this jacket. And it says, this multicolor silver leather motorcycle jacket was worn by Elvis Presley and personally given to me, Ginger Alden, by Elvis Presley at his home, Graceland in 1977. Sincerely, Ginger Alden. And there's her signature. And them is saying that Elvis looked great in that jacket with that fancy necklace. So this jacket would have originally been priced in 1974 about, because he got it in somewhere right around, could have been late 73, believe it was 74. Because I think it's either for Christmas or his birthday of 73 or his birthday at 74. Not positive, but we're going to see a story that kind of indicates that. Original price of this jacket, 1974, is about $180, which today would be about $1,300. So about $1,300. But back then, just a little under $200. Now it's sold at auction in June of 2005. So it originally sold at auction in June of 2005 for $40,000. It's $40,564.20. And in 2025, that'd be right at $67,000. Someone tried to sell it again. Apparently, whoever bought it tried to sell it again on April 11th, 2015. But it did not sell. There was a minimum bid of $40,000. Someone bid, but it didn't sell. So there must have been a reserve of more than $40,000. But the expectation was only like $50,000 to $60,000. So I don't know how much this reserve could have been, but somebody bid $40,000 and they didn't get it. And then on May 21st, 2016, it's sold at auction for $50,000. And in 2025 dollars, that'd be right at $67,000. So according to the market, once you calculate in inflation, the jacket has not increased or decreased in value. It remains at this roughly $67,000 price based on these two sales. And Keith is saying that the place that made it was opened in 67 through 79 and had many styles like Elvis gave Ginger. Mm-hmm. And Marion's saying that's a lot of money. And Anna's saying she's often wondered about that particular necklace and pendant. Maybe we'll have to look at it someday. Let's go on with the story of the jacket, because it gets more interesting. Here's a picture of Elvis wearing the jacket. I don't think this is the best picture of Elvis I've ever seen, but he does have one impressive belt buckle on. I think that might be the belt buckle that was given to him for breaking the record, or it was given to him by the International Hotel for performing there. I don't remember if it was breaking a record or not, but I think that's that belt buckle. I'm not positive, but I think it is. Of course, it's a very blurry picture. And I think that the pendant he's wearing is the lion's head pendant, which is a very, very famous piece of jewelry that he had. And he's got that collar, that shirt, thrown up over the collar of the jacket, which is giving it an odd effect. And Marion's saying, can we see the jacket again? Yes, here it is. It's on Elvis. But this picture is so weird that I don't really want to leave it up here too long. Yeah, he's got some rings on it. One of them, woo, that's a nice, it's a huge ring to show up in this kind of, as blurry as this picture is. It's still, you can see all the rings on his hand, and one of them is very spectacular. And them is saying, I don't know how he managed to wear those belts. They must have been so heavy. Yeah, instead of holding your pants up, maybe he connected it to his shirt to hold it down because I feel like my pants would just falling off all the time. But that's a good point. And then that is a really an impressive one. That's why I think it's that one particular belt buckle. Now here we've got Tom Jones and Elvis, and I'll leave this one up for a little while I talk. Then we get kind of that doubling infinity mirror effect, as it's also the picture in the background. And just to talk about this jacket some more, this is a garment of power, history, and transformation. And you can see that Elvis has worn this several times. Or at least been caught in several pictures with it. So in a way, it's also like public armor for him. Same way that his jumpsuits were. They form a part of his image. Now it's a piece of personal wear, so he loves to wear it casually, but it projects that image that he likes. And now that he's entrusted it to Ginger, it's more than a gift. It's also a declaration that you are a part of my myth now, and you carry my fire. That she is a reflection of him, just like everybody that's in his circle is a reflection of him. That people will see her as him, and they will treat her as him, hopefully with the respect and dignity that they would treat him. But the ones that don't like him, they'll probably treat her in the same way. And it's also saying, it's a gift that's saying, this garment once held love. Now let it hold ours. And now what other love did it hold? Well, we're going to talk about that. The black hawk with the wings that spread across a rainbow sky, they evoke a kind of a mythic guardian, a thunderbird, and part rock and roll deity. So they kind of mix these mythic symbols together to form a unique symbol that is just Elvis. And it's Elvis claiming flight, even as his health and his public image were faltering. So during this period, 1974 through 1977, this is when Elvis's body is deteriorating as much as it's ever going to deteriorate. It gets worse and worse and worse. And he has to continue to use more medication to be able to get himself up onto the stage to do the performances. And a jacket like this helps hide any physical issues you may be having in your torso. It helps make your shoulders look broader, helps make it look like you're standing up taller. It is a kind of an armor, like we talked about a minute ago. And it's also got his personal deity, not trying to replace God or anything, but just a symbol of protection across his back. This thunderbird that spreads its wings and says, this is my Elvis. I'm going to protect him. And Emma's saying she'd love to hold one of these belts and see how heavy it was. And Sam's saying they weighed up to 75 pounds. Wow. That's a lot. I don't know that I could wear 75 pounds around my waist. I don't know about the belt. I know that the jumpsuits and stuff would weigh like quite a bit, but I don't know if I've ever seen a number for either one. So that's very interesting. And then the psychedelic pinwheels and the rainbow flames. Those are details that link him to the counterculture that he never fully joined, but which is really kind of running the rock circle now. He always hovered near it, but this jacket's telling the new generation, the new rock and rollers, I'm still the king of rock. I'm the king. Here I am. Now, Ginger Alden wrote about this in her book. So let's see what she said about it. Ginger said, I had never lost my love for motorcycles. I was thrilled, therefore, when we were at Graceland one night and Elvis finally asked me to ride with him. He called for Billy Smith, and when Billy entered the room, Elvis looked at him and said, saddle up the Harley Hogs. which was Elvis telling Billy to go get the motorcycles ready. We're going to go ride around town. So Billy left, and figuring that Elvis must own a few Harley-Davidson motorcycles, I asked him why he called them hogs. And he said, because they hog the road. And then this next bit, this is a priceless personal detail about Elvis that she reveals in her book that I don't think it's bad. It's just unique and eccentric. And it says, as usual, he left his pajamas on, stepped into his blue jumpsuit, buckled his black stage belt around his waist, and tucked one of his guns inside it. So as Elvis gets ready to go out riding, he doesn't even take his pajamas off. He just puts a jumpsuit, like a coverall, over top of it. Like a maintenance coverall. Only this is his jumpsuit that he wears like out on stage and stuff, which is just crazy, right? Like, can you imagine watching Elvis do this? And then he puts on the stage belt, and then he puts the gun into the belt, getting ready to go. And then he goes into his dressing room. Now, what's she talking about the dressing room? Well, that's the bathroom. That's the bathroom where they found him. That's the bathroom that has a bed in it, and is a whole nother room, and is done up like a gigantic walk-in closet. And he goes in there to, find something. And he returns with his black leather jacket. And he hands me a jacket. And he says, here, I want you to have this. And it was a beautiful jacket in silver leather. It's the jacket we've been looking at. It's got multicolored flames and a black eagle painted on the back. It's the jacket that Elvis is wearing in this picture we've been looking at. Elvis handed me a helmet, and we walked downstairs, stopping by his grandmother's room. That'd be Minnie Mae. So before they left, Elvis was taking this young girl out on a date. He's gonna go out motorcycle riding with her. He stops to talk to Minnie Mae. So they stopped by his grandmother's room. We said a quick hello, and we continued out back. I thought it was sweet that Elvis usually checked on Dodger whenever he was going out. So she notices this too, that and it scores points with her that Elvis cares about his grandmother, and he checks on her whenever he walks by, whenever he's getting ready to leave the house. The minute I put the helmet on, Elvis looked at me and he began to laugh. You look like a lollipop head, he said. I was amused as well, knowing my head was on the small side, and the helmet was huge on me. Billy and a couple of the guys got on motorcycles, and straddling his own, Elvis said, come on, chicken neck, get on. So, he's trying to impress this young girl, and he puts this helmet on her that's a little too big for her. He calls her a lollipop head, and then he calls her a chicken neck. But apparently, when Elvis calls you a lollipop head or a chicken neck, you feel the love in it, because she didn't take offense to any of this. She felt like it was affectionate. It seems very happy to retell the story this way. And so Ginger says, I did. I got on, and we slowly took off down the driveway. But my neck couldn't support the weight of the helmet, and I kept banging my head into Elvis's. He started laughing, and pretty soon we were nearly hysterical, because every time he slowed down, my helmet would go clank against his. We rode up and down Elvis Presley Boulevard, where Elvis playfully yelled to a couple of passing cars, get off my street! He was enjoying himself, and I was having a blast. At one point, Elvis had to use a restroom, so we stopped at a gas station. Some fans had followed us. Elvis stepped off the motorcycle and signed a few autographs. He always took his time with the fans. But before long, they were back on the motorcycle, and they rode around and went through some parking lots, and then went on back to Graceland. It'd been a fun night, and she hoped there'd be a lot more like them. And that's how Ginger got the jacket. It was there in Elvis's dressing room, in his giant closet. He just went in and he picked it out and he gave it to her. But where did this jacket come from? And this is where we get to Emma. where she had said Elvis has great taste. Turns out Elvis didn't pick this jacket. It was gifted to him. It was a gift from a very special person. And it was another girlfriend. And it was Linda Thompson. So back in 1974, or probably 73, late 73, Linda commissioned this jacket to be made. And I don't know if she gave it to him for the Christmas or for his birthday, or maybe it was at a different point in time. But it was sometime in late 73 or early 74. And in 20... So it's probably Elvis that paid for the jacket, because most of Linda's gifts to Elvis were purchased with money that Elvis gave her. But she went and had this made. And then Elvis gave it to Ginger. And then Ginger sold it on the auction circuit. And then in 2021, Linda Thompson was reunited with the jacket. And she said it holds so many memories. Let's take a look here. Here's another picture of Elvis wearing this jacket. He's shaking somebody's hand, which makes part of the picture look weird. He's receiving a police badge. So I'm not exactly sure when this is or which police badge this is. But he is wearing the jacket. And he's getting a police badge, which is one of his favorite things in the world to do. So he's having a great time in this picture. And them is saying, wow, Linda had great taste then. And Terry saying, fantastic live stream today, Matt. Great information. Thank you. Thank you, Terry, for letting me know that. And them is saying, I agree. But we haven't really got to the end yet. We've got more to learn about this jacket. Let's keep going. Here's Linda. This is when she was reunited with the jacket. 2021. She got to put it on. She got to wear it again. Let's talk a little bit more about this. So, for anybody who doesn't know Linda Thompson, she dated Elvis from 1972 through 1976. She basically lived at Graceland with him for most of that time. For the first year, they were basically inseparable. She was a former Miss Tennessee model. She's in her 70s right now. So she was 71 when this picture was taken. And she looks incredible. Especially for 71, but she always looked incredible. So she was a very beautiful woman. And she wrote on Instagram after she tried this jacket on again, when she was reunited with it, that I had these beautiful matching motorcycle jackets made for Elvis and me years ago. So this was at the Lone Star Elvis Festival at the Palace Arts Center in Grapevine, Texas. And she has revealed that there's not one of these jackets, there's two of them. So that's one of the reasons I'm saying it's not one of a kind. Linda had two made. One for Elvis and one for herself. So there's two of these jackets. They're a matching set. And they were so that they could ride the motorcycle together, you know, and have a matching set of jackets. Be boyfriend and girlfriend. She also said, I must admit it was sentimental to try on Elvis's jacket today, courtesy of a very generous collector at the Lone Star Festival. I honestly felt I was getting a hug from the jacket because it held so many memories for me. So this is a jacket that she gave to Elvis, and she saw it many times. You can see that he wore it a lot because he got pictures taken, and that there were personal times that she wore these jackets with him. So you might wonder, what happened to the other jacket? Well, in 2005, you know, Linda was married to Bruce Jenner. who is, no longer Bruce Jenner. But back then, he was Bruce Jenner, and he had a couple of sons with Linda, Brody and Brandon Jenner. And in 2005, which was after Bruce was out of the picture, at least with Linda, Brody and Brandon had a TV series, one of them reality shows. It was called The Princes of Malibu. And in the show, they go into her Elvis closet. Apparently she kept a closet full of Elvis stuff from her memories and time with Elvis. And when they're in there, one of the boys says, they find the jacket. And they say, what is this thing? Mom really wore this? What was she thinking? And she was actually saying in the earlier interview in 2021 that this jacket, the matching jacket, was hanging up in her closet at home. And she referenced this clip from 2005 when her sons looked at it. But it turns out that on November 11th, 2017, her jacket, the one from her closet, the one that Linda had made for herself, was sold at auction. November 11th, 2017. Let's take a look here. Here's Linda, still in Elvis's jacket. This is her jacket. It's very, very similar, but I think you can see that it's smaller and for a female. And here's the back of it. Same motif as Elvis. These were basically two matching motorcycle jackets for a boyfriend and girlfriend. She's got the same label on the inside sewn into hers. Can't quite see what is handwritten on here. But again, I believe it's something about the size and to indicate that this was her jacket and not the other one. And that's all the pictures that I have for the story. Story goes just a little farther. So that was Linda's jacket, almost exactly the same, with some fading around the collar, minor cracking in the leather, minor brown staining. So she did wear it. It was something that she wore. I doubt she ever wore it after she left Elvis. Comes with a letter that we don't get to see from Linda Thompson. Probably just says, I had these made. So let's head back into the archive. Okay, well, let's just turn this off. Then we can see Elvis in his jacket. So this jacket, it's a garment that held two women, two eras, and one man's longing to be understood. He took this jacket, which was full of love. It was given to him full of love. He wore it with love. He gave Linda love. She returned love to him. At some point, the jacket went into the closet, and he would never have worn it again because he couldn't, he was no longer with Linda, so he couldn't bring himself to that place. Now, a lot of people, when somebody leaves, they would get rid of everything that reminds them about them. But Elvis saw in this jacket the love that they shared, and he wanted that love, even if it wasn't with Linda. And he transferred that feeling and that love over to Ginger. He let her wear the jacket, and she was now the recipient of the love. And she reflected back to him a previous time when he'd been happy. And I think that was important for him because he had such a difficult time finding a long-term relationship with anybody. I think probably due to himself, but he had a difficult time with it. So I think in his mind, everything was time limited. There was going to be a short time for this. And he wanted to relive these experiences that he'd had while he wore this jacket. And I think that's a lot of what he does in his romantic relationships, is that there are certain points in those relationships that he attempts to relive over and over throughout his life. And I'll bring more and more of that out as we go further and further into looking at Elvis in our different series. But again, that's my personal opinion. Everybody's welcome to opinion. Here at the very last few moments of the broadcast, I will give my daily disclaimer that I am not an expert. I'm just a guy who finds Elvis stuff and talks into a microphone. I don't have any qualifications. Everybody here is welcome to comment and let me know their thoughts on stuff, what they think, their opinion. We'll talk it out, and everybody gets to make their own decisions and walk away bearing their own opinions. Because we're making it down to the source material, like this jacket, and we're looking at why Elvis might have given this jacket, which had so much meaning attached to it, to another person who then held on to it for a long, long time because it meant something. It meant something very deep. Now, Emma, you may like this jacket enough that you would like to own it as a replica. And you can own a replica of this jacket. It's available on eBay right now for $6,000 or best offer. So anybody that wants this jacket can get a hold of it. I'm not sure I would pay $6,000 for a replica. $60 I'd probably pay, but 6,000, especially from eBay, I don't know that I would do that. But you might make them a really low best offer, and maybe you'll end up with a jacket. But that's really everything that I've got to show us today, and we've hit the end of our hour. So I thank you all for tuning in for yet another hour of the mystery of August 16th, 1977, another hour of Hillbilly Cat history. I hope that everybody learned something. I think the story of this jacket is amazing. I think between the 4 gifts that we looked at that went to Ginger, we can see that Elvis had purpose with his gifts, that he was trying to build a relationship with Ginger, that he may have told other people about his doubts within the relationship, but that didn't mean that what's his ultimate feelings about the relationship. Something was obviously going on here. He was having deep thoughts, and he was trying to win Ginger over. And we're going to see a lot more gifts that Ginger gets, and every one of them has just a massive amount of personal meaning and symbolism behind it, as well as all the gifts that he gives to everybody else. And we're going to look at a whole lot of them. And Terry saying $6,000 seems like a pretty cheap jacket. Or maybe he's saying that about the $60 I'd be willing to pay. And Anna's saying, such a fun video, Matt. Thank you, Anna. I really appreciate that. And Emma's saying that it's slightly out of her price range. Keith's saying, was Ginger going on tour with EP on 8/16? And I wonder if anyone else was joining Elvis. People were joining Elvis. Vernon was going with Elvis. He had just told him the day before. Ginger probably was not going to be on the 8/17 date. I don't know that she would have been on the next date either, but she was planning to join soon. She says that she was having really bad menstrual cramps, basically. That she didn't feel good, that this was a common occurrence for her once a month, and that during those days she just tried to rest, and she did not like to travel on those days. So, you know, what she says makes a lot of sense, but people read a lot into it. But even his own father, Elvis didn't know that his dad was going till the next day, and when he heard, he said, hey, the more the merrier. So people came and went from these tours. That, you know, only Elvis had to be there. And Elvis took that responsibility on his shoulders, and he understood. And that's what he did. And Carolyn's saying, thank you so much, Matt, for a great live. Thank you, Carolyn. I really appreciate that comment. Marion saying bye. Thank you, and bye to everybody. Thank you, everyone. And like I tell you every time at the end of every single broadcast. You all keep on taking care of business.